A great movie is often made better by a great song. Often, those songs become huge hits on their own and have just as much, or more, of a legacy as the movie itself. Here is our list of the hit songs from movie soundtracks that still get played often. You can't have this list without the massive Celine Dion hit, My Heart Will Go On, from another massive hit, Titanic. The song went to number 1 in more than 25 countries worldwide and sold somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 million copies. It made Dion an international superstar and remains a song people all over the world love. Sometimes people forget that the Public Enemy track, Fight the Power, is from a soundtrack. The song by the pioneering hip-hop crew has taken on a true life of its own with its strong social message and fantastic beat. It did, however, start life as part of the soundtrack for Spike Lee's revolutionary Do the Right Thing, a movie the song fits perfectly in. Whitney Houston was a national treasure before her untimely death at age 48. Her biggest hit, I Will Always Love You, from The Bodyguard was written by another national treasure, Dolly Parton. The combination of the two proved to be immensely powerful and successful, as the song, and the soundtrack album it is on, dominated the charts for months, starting in late 1992. The album spent a total of 121 weeks on the charts, nearly 2.5 years. The late Glenn Frey had a slew of hits with his original band, the Eagles, and in the 80s he had a bunch of solo hits as well. The most prominent being, The Heat Is On the Beverly Hills Cop soundtrack. The opening notes crash into the opening scene of the movie and people have loved the song ever since. Kenny Loggins was soundtrack gold in the 1980s. He had huge hits in a number of movies including Caddyshack and Footloose, but maybe his most enduring hit is Danger Zone, from the Top Gun soundtrack. It's still so popular that the original version was used in Top Gun: Maverick rather than an updated version. Amazingly, it was offered to a number of artists before Loggins, but we can't imagine anyone else singing it. Is there a more aptly named song than Pharrell Williams's Happy? It's a song that just makes you, well, happy. Like the movie it's from, Despicable Me 2, it's full of joy and you can't not be in a good after watching the movie or listening to the song. It was an instant classic when it was released on the soundtrack and remains so today. With over 2 billion views on YouTube, Sunflower by Post Malone and Sway Lee from the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse soundtrack is a true earworm. It's a song you can listen to over and over and never get sick of. Superhero movies don't tend to produce a ton of hit songs, for whatever reason, but Sunflower is a huge exception. There is no way to play Dolly Parton's 9 to 5 inches and not immediately get motivated. If you ever feel low on energy, just pop this song, and bam! You're off to the races. It's a song you still hear all the time, despite coming out as part of the soundtrack to the movie of the same name. Dolly truly is the greatest, we think you'll agree. The Saturday Night Fever soundtrack was a cultural phenomenon in the late 70s. To this day it's one of the best-selling albums of all time, with an estimated 40 million copies sold. The soundtrack, The Sound of the 70s, was anchored by the now legendary disco song, Stayin' Alive, by the Bee Gees. The song was such a huge hit, that they named the sequel to Saturday Night Fever after it, though that's a sequel we'd rather forget. The late Coolio's hit Gangsta Paradise, from the Dangerous Minds soundtrack is a great example of a song's legacy far outlasting the movies. The movie, starring Michelle Pfeiffer, was a huge hit in 1995, but you have to wonder if the song drove more of the box office than the movie itself. It's not a terrible movie by any means, but it's not surprising the song is more popular today than the film. Even in the 2020s, on golf courses all over the world, you will hear quotes and references to Caddyshack, and that includes the theme song from the movie, I'm Alright, by Kenny Loggins. One of a slew of soundtrack hits for Loggins in the 80s, I'm Alright, was the first to launch that part of the singer's career, and it's kept him relevant for years, decades even. The tale of the signature song from the Ghostbusters soundtrack is long and sordid. There have been disputes and lawsuits along the way, but the Ray Parker Jr. remains a banger and one that gets played all the time, especially at every Halloween party you've ever been to. The video is also legendary, with all kinds of stars making cameos and singing along with it. Eminem's legacy is cemented as one of the best rappers of all time. He also took a foray into acting for a bit, starring in the semi-autobiographical 8 Mile in 2002. It's a good movie, though a little dated these days. The hit song from it, Lose Yourself, is definitely not dated, however, and people still love listening to the hip-hop anthem today. Randy Newman is one of the truly underappreciated songwriters of the late 20th century, but it's really great to know that one of his songs, You Got a Friend in Me, from Pixar's Toy Story, has become part of the American music lexicon. Generations of kids have now grown up singing the happy ditty, and it will surely be a favorite for kids for generations more. The song, like the movie, will always find a new young audience. Prince owned the mid-1980s with hits like 1999, Little Red Corvette, Controversy, and more. In 1984 he took on the most ambitious project of his career, a movie called Purple Rain, and the soundtrack to accompany it. The movie was a success, and the album was a full-blown blockbuster. There are a bunch of songs we could choose here, but by far the most fun is Let's Go Crazy. The guitar solo at the end is one of the best ever played in pop music, period. The Scottish band Simple Minds had been building a solid career for themselves in the UK in the early 80s but had not found any success breaking through in America. That was until 1985 when they were asked to record Don't You Forget About Me for the soundtrack to The Breakfast Club. The song was then, and remains, a true anthem of the decade. To later generations, Isaac Hayes is probably best known as the voice of Chef on South Park, but for any film fan from the 70s, he's the guy who wrote and recorded the soundtrack to the original Shaft. The whole soundtrack is filled with funky goodness, but the theme song remains the most iconic. It's been referenced in pop culture all over the place, including in a very funny bit on news radio in the 90s and of course, in an episode of The Simpsons in Season 2. It was pretty rare in the 1960s to get a pop group, or folk duo in this case, to do an entire film soundtrack, but in the case of The Graduate, it was a brilliant decision. Simon and Garfunkel wrote and recorded the soundtrack, which includes one of the best songs of the 20th century, Mrs. Robinson. In the years since it was released in 1968, it's been covered by many other artists including Frank Sinatra and the Lemonheads, who had a big hit with it in the 90s. When it was released in 1987, Dirty Dancing grew its audience through word of mouth and people returned again and again. Like the movie, the final song of the film, I've Had the Time of My Life by Bill Medley and Jennifer Warnes gets people coming back to it over and over. It's a beloved song for multiple generations. It even won the Oscar for Best Original Song, one of the most enduring songs to ever do so. Unless you already know that Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head by B.J. Thomas is from Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, you'd never guess it. It seems so out of place, yet somehow works perfectly in the movie. The movie is an all-time great western and the song feels straight out of the era the movie came out, the late 60s. It's popular today to make period pieces with modern music, but it was a rarity then. Eric Clapton's plaintive hit Tears in Heaven is a great example of a song far outshining the movie it was written for. Rush, starring Jennifer Jason Leigh and Jason Patric, is largely forgotten these days, but the song, which Clapton wrote about his young son who tragically died, has endured for decades and is still a highlight of his live concerts. Kenny Loggins just churned out hit after hit in the 80s. Most of them came from movies, like his iconic Footloose from the Kevin Bacon movie of the same name. The movie feels a little dated these days, but the song is a perfect moment in time that makes it, in fact, timeless. We dare you to try to not sing along and dance when you play it by yourself in the car. Go on, try. Let's be honest, the 2006 version of the Pink Panther starring Steve Martin is mostly forgettable. The exception is co-star Beyoncé and her banger of a hit, Check on It. It's vintage Beyoncé and should be played at a high volume, as much as possible. It's been far more enduring than the movie it came from. One of the most striking things about Baz Luhrmann's The Great Gatsby was the modern music set against the backdrop of 1920s America. The soundtrack is fantastic, and Lana Del Rey's Young and Beautiful is a song that people still love listening to today. One of the best songs to get you pumped up and psyched for anything really is Eye of the Tiger by Survivor. Written as the theme song for Rocky III, the song has since become the ultimate 1980s anthem and has been used in countless movies and TV shows, not to mention commercials and, of course, in sports stadiums all over the world. Did you know that the Madonna hit Crazy for You is from a movie soundtrack? No, that's not a surprise. The song was first released as part of the soundtrack for Vision Quest. The movie was nowhere near as big a hit as the song, which Madonna actually performs in the film. The song was so much more popular, in fact, that when the movie was released worldwide, the name was changed to Crazy for You in some countries. The late Tina Turner had one of the most enduring careers in showbiz history. One of her best appearances was in 1985's Mad Max, Beyond Thunderdome. Even more memorable was the song she recorded for the soundtrack, We Don't Need Another Hero, which became one of the biggest hits of her legendary career. Aerosmith has been one of the biggest bands in the world for decades now, but their only #1 hit came from the Armageddon soundtrack. Despite multiple songs making their way into the top 10, I Don't Want to Miss a Thing is the only one to hit the pinnacle for the Boston band. Superfly is probably the most famous movie in the 1970s genre known as blaxploitation. While it's a great movie that has a strong cult following, the soundtrack has endured even more, especially the theme song of the same name, written and performed by the great Curtis Mayfield.